Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you so much for clicking on over us to this channel. This is a pretty cool video. We do one of these every year. This is our best movies, our top 15 movies of 2019.
Right.
So we're gonna start this up. Before we get into all of it, I do want to bring up some things. Is that we never saw Irishman. We can never get ourselves.
We just ran out of time.
Yeah, we can never find the time to watch it.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, because honestly, we're planning on making this video, then we're planning on making a worst movies of 2019, and then we're planning on making a best of the decade video list. And that's going to split up into several videos. We're planning on doing like 100 of those.
Right, and we're watching a whole bunch of movies from this past decade.
Yeah,
so our schedule is kind of filled up.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, we're in school. We're getting ready to graduate.
Right.
We just graduated, so we're getting ready for that. So Irishman was just something that we could never find the time to watch because it is 3.5 hours.
Yeah, and then there's 1917, which technically came out last year, but it only came out to select theaters, and then it's going to be released nationwide this month.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to watch it because there wasn't any theaters near us that were showing it. So those two movies definitely were two that I really want to watch. Just we didn't get to watch.
Yeah, and two other ones that I've heard that are good that I haven't got a chance to. We never got a chance to watch either. Is Dolomite Is My Name and Honey Boy. We didn't get to watch those four, and obviously there's probably a lot of other ones we didn't get to see. You know, so we just want to say that before this. Also, we want to bring up that grades do not matter.
Right.
And if you ever watch a video and you're like, well, that grade was higher than that one. like, it doesn't matter because some grades are so close. It's just that maybe there's a few more flaws, but even movies that have a few more flaws, I may like it better, more than one that had more flaws.
Right. When I grade a movie, I usually grade it like 50% on how much I enjoyed it and 50% on how good the movie was. For this list, I kind of graded 70% how much I enjoyed it and 30% how good of a movie it was.
Yeah, me too. So. And also, another thing, we keep putting a lot, we were like really unprofessional at the beginning of this video. New people were like, who are these guys don't know what they're talking about. Also, we have also changed some of our opinions on some of these movies. I know at least 2 or 3 of the movies that I have on this list, my opinion has changed heavily on them. Or at least in somewhat it's changed to where they probably wouldn't have been on this list before, and now they're actually on this list. Or they may have been on this list at a lower point, and now they're on a higher part. So that I just want to bring that up as well.
And finally, we're going to try not to talk too much about each of these movies. Most of them we have reviews for. We'll leave links to those videos in the description if you want to check those out.
So we're going to go ahead and get into our top 15 movies of 2019, and we're going to start off with some honorable mentions. Us, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Zombieland Double Tap.
Ford v Ferrari, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, Spider-Man Far From Home, The Farewell, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
So there are a few that we do have the same on this list, and we're going to talk about this together. And I will be starting off with our number 15, which is Peanut Butter Falcon. I actually just watched this movie right before we filmed this video.
Right.
And honestly, I like this movie a lot. It was really cool. It kind of makes you look at like when someone's mentally handicapped, to a certain extent, maybe it shows that maybe we should be treating them differently and more equal to everyone else because maybe they don't want to be treated like that.
Right. And it was also really cool that they actually cast an actual guy who has Down syndrome to play this character, and the whole movie is really a heartfelt one. The connection between Shia LaBeouf and this guy who's trying to live a normal life.
Yeah, it was really great acting as well.
For our number 14, we also have the same one with Dr. Sleep. This is a sequel to The Shining, one of our favorite horror movies of all time, and I really feel like it lives up to that. I feel like it was another movie that's different than a lot of modern horror movies, and a lot better than a lot of modern horror movies.
Yeah, and also this movie really underperformed at the box office. I know a lot of people who like this movie a lot, and it really is extremely underrated. And obviously, you can't be as good as The Shining, but this one really was a solid sequel to it. For my number 13, I'm going to pick Ford v Ferrari, which to me was a really good movie and a really unexpectedly good movie. Because for me, I really don't care for race car driving at all. I don't care to watch it or know anything about it. And this movie really showed me that this movie had much more to offer than just the race car aspect of it. This movie is for film lovers and race car lovers.
For my number 13, I have John Wick 3 Parabellum, which I still feel like the first John Wick was the best one of the trilogy so far, but I still feel like this adds on to that legacy, and it has some of the best action scenes, the most creative action scenes I've seen in a movie.
For our number 12, we picked Shazam, and which to me, I love this movie. To me, it is one of the, it's one of the best DC comic book movies. And I mean, I know that's not saying a lot for some of them, but to me, this movie really was kind of a breath of fresh air for superhero movies, because even though you do have a powerful superhero, it's not really that big of a superhero movie. It's just kind of there, and it's good. And you have a concept that's very silly, but the movie knows that it's silly, and so it doesn't try to take it that serious unless it needs to, and it flows together really well.
Yeah, they really blended the comedy with kind of the more heartfelt moments with the whole theme of family.
For my number 11, I have The Farewell, and this is another movie I just watched today. And honestly, this movie was really fantastic. I'm really mad I didn't get to watch it earlier. Yes, some fantastic performances, namely Awkwafina, who I didn't really know that much about her, but she's really great. It's a really great story that makes you think, like, what would I want to do, or what would I do in this situation? What would I feel comfortable with? And it honestly is a thing of, like, you notice that it's kind of not right, but at the same time, it's understandable, and it's a really heartfelt movie that really has these really nice moments of emotion, and actually is pretty funny at times.
My number 11 is Booksmart. It's Olivia Wilde's first movie to direct, and on paper, it might seem like a cheap teen comedy, but they were able to really elevate it to another level, and it's actually a really high energy, a really funny movie. And the two lead actresses are both really great in the movie.
For my number 10, I have Knives Out. This is a movie that I really loved. I wasn't necessarily surprised by liking it, but I was surprised by how great it actually was, and how smart it was, and how this movie really tells you a lot of information from the get-go, from really early on, and you're wondering, what else is this movie going to do? But even after that, it keeps bringing up information and keeps bringing out twists, but not twists for twist's sakes, twists that actually make sense, that actually flow well with this movie, and actually create a very nice film.
For my number 10, I have Parasite. Now, this is a foreign film that starts off as kind of a comedy, but it really shifts into something completely different by the end of it. And it's all really well blended together. And it does well with showing differences in class and how the rich perceive some things and how the poor or less fortunate perceive the same things.
For my number 9, I have Avengers Endgame. And for a while, I mean, it was pretty early on in the year, but it was my favorite movie of the year. I've realized that a lot of people do have flaws with this movie, but honestly, and if you want to, you can check out a video that I made I went over all the flaws of this that people have with this movie, and how I don't agree with many of the issues that had to do with this movie. This movie, a lot of people say it was 10 years in the making. I know that, it's great, but this movie really did feel like it was the ending and the conclusion to this saga, and really ended everything really nicely.
For my number 9, I have The Lighthouse, and this is a movie that's completely about isolation. It's about Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe both isolated in this island together, where they're both kind of going insane, and it really makes the audience feel like they're going insane with them. And overall, it gives you kind of an uneasy feeling throughout the movie. And also, it's filmed in black and white, and it's also filmed with actual equipment from the time period which it actually takes place in. For our number 8, we both have Toy Story 4. Now, we both were people who didn't want this movie to be made after how well the Toy Story 3 ended, but it really found a way to add new stories and new arcs, especially for Woody.
Yeah, it was a movie that really, you walked in there, you're like, whatever, and then they really kind of showed you what you wanted to happen, and you didn't even realize that you wanted it to happen. My number 7 is going to be Parasite. Zach talked about it, so I won't talk about it for much, but I just felt this movie was really good and really handled a balance of really great comedy, and all the jokes were hilarious throughout, and it really just took like this nice little dark turn, but it was also really flowed well together and really had this nice story of class relations.
For my number 7, I have Avengers Endgame. Now, this was a movie that was over 10 years in the making and over 20 movies in the making, and I feel like it really lived up to the potential and all the hype that led up to it. I can't agree that it's not as clean of a movie as like Infinity War or some of the other movies in the MCU, but I still feel like it was a great conclusion to the Infinity Saga.
And for my number 6, I'm going to pick Marriage Story, which is a fantastic movie on Netflix starring Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, who have fantastic chemistry even when they're arguing at their worst in this film. And they really just show this level of compassion that even whenever it looks like they're hating each other, you can really feel the love between the two. It's a really real film that really just captures just such authentic moments of desperation with Adam Driver's character and trying to get with their kid, or just the idea of divorce and how divorce isn't always an ugly thing, but it can become one if you let certain things in, like lawyers or something like that. It can actually make an ugly process.
For my number 6, I have Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Now, as a kid, I was a huge fan of Godzilla, but I don't really want to act like that's the only reason why I love this movie so much, because honestly, this movie had some of the most interesting human characters I've seen in a giant monster movie, which I know is very specific, but like I honestly wasn't only interested in the monsters. I was really invested with a lot of the human characters and the story that was going on with them. And the monster fights were some of the best I've seen in a movie.
For my number 5, I'm gonna do Uncut Gems, starring Adam Sandler. And if you wouldn't want to see this movie because Adam Sandler's starring in it, go see it, dude. Adam Sandler is phenomenal in this movie. This movie in general, I love. Safdie brothers are geniuses. If you've ever seen Good Time from the Safdie brothers, it's kind of like that, to where this movie just completely is anxiety driven, to where just every scene in this movie just builds up and builds up an anxiety until you have the end, which is just complete anxiety fueled.
For my number 5, I have Joker. Now, for the longest time, this movie was my number 1 movie of the year, but as I was making this list, I was realizing there's a lot of great movies I actually really loved, especially at the end of this year, and it really just kind of fell down as I was making my top 5. But I really love this movie. Joaquin Phoenix really hit it out of the ballpark. The way he lost all the weight for this movie, the way he was able to portray this man who's descending into madness slowly and slowly as the movie progresses. It was all just really unsettling to watch in a way, and just overall is just so enjoyable to watch.
For our number 4, we're going to talk about Jojo Rabbit, and this is a movie that I've seen some people who haven't seen it not like it. So if you haven't seen it because you think it makes jokes about the Holocaust or it makes fun of Holocaust victims, it's not at all. This movie is completely anti-hate, completely anti-Nazi, completely anti-Hitler. Mm-hmm. This movie is really good, and it really has that message of anti-hate really nicely just woven into it.
Yeah, because, I mean, not to really spoil too much of it, but you really see this kid who's grown up to be so racist towards Jews really start to realize that they're not really that different than he is.
And it really, you see him kind of just, while he's noticing that, there's kind of a struggle within himself of, I see that they're not bad, but my mind doesn't want to tell me because it's so ingrained. It just really shows how ingrained racism can be in a person's brain. For my number 3, I'm going to pick The Lighthouse, with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Robert Pattinson does fantastic. He's honestly one of my favorite actors of today. Obviously, Willem Dafoe is. You know, he's amazing. And this movie really just, it's one of those movies you're watching, you're like, this right here, this is why I love film. Because it's not just a movie there trying to please all audiences. It knows it's a movie that a lot of people, some may not even like at all, and there's gonna be a lot who do. And it really knows its audience, you know, and it really knows who it needs to be there for. And this movie really, it has very hidden meanings that you need to look for. And honestly, it's why I consider film to be an art form.
For my number 3, I have A Marriage Story. This was a movie that was released on Netflix, and it honestly had some of the 2 best acting performances I've seen in a long time, to be honest. And Adam Driver, honestly, I didn't think anybody was even going to be able to rival Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker for the Oscar this year, but Adam Driver, he really hit it in this movie. And overall, it's a really emotional story, like Marquez said, about how a marriage or a divorce can really not be that ugly until you let things in, like lawyers and these emotions that come out. You do things that you normally wouldn't do under a calm state. And then there's a lot of one-shot takes where it just really reels you in, and especially a lot of the arguments that are in this movie, especially one in particular, it really captivates you. For our number 2, we have Midsommar, which is kind of funny because last year I had Hereditary as my number 2 spot, which is another Ari Aster movie, and then I have this one as my number 2. But this movie was one of those movies where, a lot like Hereditary, where I feel like you have to watch it a second time to fully appreciate everything that's going on in this movie. And because the first time I watched it, I didn't really know how I felt about it. But you really have to watch it more as like a breakup story than an actual horror movie, because it's mostly about the main character's how she's handling her grief with what happened at the beginning of the movie, and with her relationship kind of breaking down throughout the movie.
And honestly, like you're saying, like I liked this movie when I first saw it. I didn't love it, and I was like, it's a little slow. It doesn't seem like a lot's happening. But like you said, if you're really watching it for what he's going for, there really is a build-up in this movie, and it really does pull it off really well. Ari Aster is fantastic at making things that should not be that like creepy or disturbing. Right. He knows how to make them really disturbing. This movie takes place in broad daylight. Yeah,
and like 90% of the movie.
Broad daylight. And that broad daylight, he knows how to make that broad daylight make the movie even more disturbing.
Right.
And it's really how genius he is at this craft of a horror film. So guys, here I am with my number 1. And for my number 1, I'm going to pick Joker. This movie, honestly, my top 3 were honestly really hard for me to decide which I was going to put as my number 1. But I figured it out. And then it got to me picking between Midsommar and Joker. I was like, what do I like more? And I got to thinking, you know what? When I walked out of Joker, that honestly, it's been a long time since I felt the way I did when I walked out of Joker. I walked out of that movie mesmerized, almost shaking, because of how well this movie pulled off the character of Joker, how amazing, phenomenal, one of the best performances this year, one of the best performances in years. Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, he does freaking phenomenal in this movie, and he is actually really scary in this film. And this movie really, I know a lot of this is what made this movie really controversial or whatever. It was, this movie actually makes you feel for the guy, and you don't want to, but you do. And it's kind of weird, but you know he's not a good guy. But this movie does really pull off everything so perfectly. And this is, I think, one of my few 100% that I've given this year. And so this movie really does, in my opinion, is deserving of the spot of number 1.
And for my number 1, I have Knives Out. Now this was a whodunit mystery movie that really flipped the genre on its head. It reveals a lot of stuff to you towards the beginning of the movie that you don't really expect a movie like this to do. But even after that, it's able to still have twists and turns every 10 minutes of the movie, and a lot of things are still revealed as the movie progresses. And I really love the message that has woven into the movie about how the rich American class views immigrants. And just overall, it was a really fun movie. It's a movie I could watch over and over again, and it really has a lot of details that really leads up to the final reveal.
Well guys, there it is. There are our top 15 movies of 2019. Honestly, I'm really proud of that list. There was a lot of what do I want to put here? Because honestly, this movie was fantastic.
This year?
This movie. This year was fantastic for movies, especially near the end. It's all these good movies started coming out, and oh my goodness, they're almost all really good. Almost all really good. They're almost all pretty almost equal, right, how good they are. Yeah, exactly. And so I was actually really happy about this list, honestly. Some of them could be switched and not really even make a difference to me. But it was kind of difficult to just make this list overall.
And I also do want to say that I have been sick for the past 3 days, so hopefully it wasn't too noticeable. I tried to contain my coughs, not my sniffles.
Hopefully you'll stay around here. Hopefully you subscribe and check us out a little bit more. Like I said, we are going to be putting out a lot more videos. We're planning on putting out 11 more videos. Hopefully those are here by maybe, I'm hoping maybe February, but maybe March or something like that. We're going to do a top I think we're doing 10 worst movies
Yeah.
of the year, and we're doing our best top 100 movies of the decade, which we split into about 10 or so videos. So hopefully you'll come back for those videos and check those out. And also, if that may be why we will be not necessarily inactive, like we're gonna be putting videos out, but not many movie reviews for a little bit, you know. So just come over there and check those out and be aware of those. Anyways, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also comment and let us know what your top whatever movies of 2019 were. Go ahead and rank them down below for us.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see us later.